biggest problem that I foresaw that I thought would be an issue that wasn't an issue is the material that we're running through our wash plant. I thought would be a real big issue. We're running some pretty nasty stuff that almost no normal equipment would see. We're running big jagged bedrock, and some of it's real slabby bedrock, and it'll come in 2 feet slabs that's only 5 inches thick, and it'll slide right through the grizzly bars on the feeder, and then it has to go up through the feeder and through all the whole wash plant, the super stacker, the radial stacker. It has to go through everything, and I foresaw that being a real big issue, and really wasn't an issue at all. We had a lot of stuff that we ran that was pretty nasty, and I cannot remember a time when it shut us down because of this big stuff plugging up in the conveyors. And I was really impressed with the super stacker in that sense. One of the big reasons that we started getting into the conveyors and looking at the super stackers and the radial stackers from KPI-JCI is to reduce our downtime and increase our efficiency. And that combination with super stacker and the radial stacker and what it eliminated from our site reduced our operational cost by about 15% and our downtime by about 25% by eliminating a pretty significant number of trucks and then manpower. We wouldn't have nearly had as good of a season as we did without that combination, and it was very advantageous for the whole operation in a lot of ways. Really simplified the site. This season, I look at our operation's greatest success as making that transition from the real traditional set up your wash plant up on a hill and haul your pater to it to utilizing these conveyors and the equipment that we've got and figuring out how to reduce our costs as much as we can, because that's the name of the game, is really squeezing as much out of every person and every gallon of fuel as you can. Yeah, I grew up around KPI and JCI screens. My dad has quite a bit of their equipment, and he actually is old friends with a bunch of the guys that work at JCI. So I got real familiar with their crushing outfits and their feeders and stuff like that. And then as I started getting into the gold mining, I saw some of their equipment in the gold fields and whatnot. When I started going up to Dawson and the Yukon and looking at different operations, I saw a fair bit of KPI-JCI and Astec Mobile Springs equipment. In the past, we've only had a feeder, and then our wash plant, Big Red, for the last few years has been a KPI-JCI screen. And I've seen a fair bit of their equipment around. I mean, I've been around a lot of my dad's equipment. Like I said before, I've worked on a lot of his wash plants that were made by KPI-JCI and Astec Mobile Screens, but I hadn't really ran it myself. So for the most part, it's just that feeder that we've had and then the wash plant, Big Red. The most appealing thing for me about all the products that we have from KPI and JCI, they really don't require a lot of maintenance, and the maintenance that they do require is pretty simple. And the other thing is mobility. For us, mobility is a big thing. We have to have things be portable and easy to move. Everything that we've gotten from KPI, JCI, and Astec Mobile Springs is both of those things. They're both easy to maintain and they're low maintenance. You know, it's pretty important to me that things are made in America. You know, it doesn't happen too often anymore, and it's nice to work with a company that does make their products in America, and I feel proud to be involved with them. Parts availability and service is a pretty big deal for us when we buy a piece of equipment, and when we got this super stacker and radial stacker from KPI-JCI, one of the big issues is, are we going to be able to get parts for these things? Because once they're in our operation, we're depending on them. They have to be operational. And for us being as remote as we are, it can be an issue getting parts up there. And it's never at a good time, and it's always an emergency. And Everybody at KPI-JCI and Astec Mobile Screens has been very good to work with, very accommodating, and has really helped us keep our downtime down and taken it personally when we do have downtime as far as getting us parts and whatnot.